Hello, our loyal 6 fans. We are back. This is Jamie,
And I'm Spencer.
and we are here to give you our next recap on our online reality game, Who is the Mole, Season 5. So, hopefully, you've watched our first video. Like, I can't imagine that you just stumbled upon this one without seeing the first one. But for the first time, we're going to be doing some recaps as the game goes on at the end of each round to like give updates on the season.
Mm-hmm. Just our whole general thoughts and reactions. And it'll just hopefully be fun.
Yeah,
But
a
who's to
lighthearted
say?
romp, really. And honestly, we have a lot to talk about. So Spencer, where did we want to start tonight?
I guess just start with the checking my handy dandy notes. The cast introduction, because we are at the start of the game, obviously, for the first round. So we do the cast announcement, I guess kind of like everyone's first impressions and what the first kind of like day was like.
Yeah, it's weird to think that we actually started the game basically a week ago now, right? It was last Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're at Thursday night, and for the record, we're actually about to execute someone. We'll get to that later. So our first execution is going to happen in probably about an hour from now, depending upon how long we talk.
Yeah, just whenever we shut up is then we'll execute some bitch.
So we know who it is already. But yeah, I don't know. What were your general thoughts on like the how the cast announcement went, the players' very first interactions, the launching of the game, that sort of thing?
Well, it was a very talkative group, which is not too surprising. Uh, there was, and then we did get to see, like, we had mentioned the cast system, there was a lot of connections, so we got to see that. We even got the revelation of a few more connections where, like, Nick has apparently played in, like, those Survivor games with, like, Shandy, Victoria, and Brian. And then also Adam has, like, connections to Nick and a few other people with, like, yeah, in his, like, first diary he left, he mentioned that he knew Shandy, I think, and that he probably knows Victoria.
Yeah, like actually know Shandy from outside of like this gaming world, which is just
Mm-hmm.
funny to me. Because I really don't think that they knew that each other were applying to this. I think they were very surprised to see each other here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, so it was a nice little romp at the start. It was fun. It's always fun seeing how people come together in the chats that start to form because Spencer and I are included in all of their game chats. And again, this is all through Facebook Messenger. So like we're in those, we see what's happening, and yeah, that was fun at first.
It was a little
Yes,
incident.
yes. Our first full day of the game, I'd say that we had a little bit of controversy to say the least. So yeah, Spencer, what was your take on it? Like, I don't even know what to say if I'm being
I know.
honest.
I personally don't want to get too much into it. Someone was just being provocative for the sake of being provocative, I suppose, and made a racist comment.
Yeah,
And so we did, unfortunately, it sucks. Jamie and I have lives. Tragically, we can't do this for a living, which would be nice if we somehow could. But like, so we were at our prospective jobs at the time. So we're able to kind of like vaguely monitor, but like, we can't be on chats all the time, like policing these people. Like, unfortunately, that's not something we can do.
yeah.
So as soon as we were able to, like, we did make a comment to this person being like, it is within our rules that you can't, like, you can be rude, you can be mean, you can be antagonistic to the group. Like, you don't need to be liked by everyone. Like, you can, that's
Yeah, this
fine, but
is
like,
Spencer's best friend race.
yes. But in our rules, we do have like you can't be racist, transphobic, any of the phobics,
Yeah.
the horrid things. Can't be
And
prejudiced.
and those are things that Spencer and I value a
Mm-hmm.
lot. So, and thankfully it hasn't continued since then as far as we've seen. But I'll say like something that really kind of sucks in a way as a host is like, we addressed that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that we addressed it in like a pretty fair and transparent way to that person.
Mm-hmm.
But like the group doesn't know like how we address that because it's something that we handled one-on-one, and that happens with a lot of issues, I think. So like there can
Mm-hmm.
be some questions about like why weren't you there at that immediate moment and say something, when that's not really possible, because Spencer said we just weren't around to see it at that precise moment because we were at work.
Mm-hmm.
but it is something that we addressed, and we will be reminding people of rules like that as we go along, because we do want to create like a safe environment for everyone. So,
Mhm.
but like we said, it hasn't continued. I hope that it doesn't either.
If it does, that person will just be kicked from the game.
Yes, yes. So, but we'll leave that at that for now.
Mm-hmm. Because like so the first day was a little awkward from that, but the rest of the days, like the general mood of the game was much more lighthearted, more typical mole
Mhm.
nonsense that we actually like. So that was nice that at least we got the return to normal.
Yeah, yeah. So should we move on to like the first assignment, do you think?
Oh no, no! Before the first assignment, we did have like a few kind of like starting twists. So the
Okay.
first thing that we did was the treasure role as a twist that we had introduced. And so with the treasure, like if you're fans of like international versions of the mole in Via Stamol, which is the Dutch version of it, they have a person that is in the treasure that can
The
change anytime over the
Pennymeister.
course of the. Oh, sure, whatever. And so like they're in charge of the money, so like they hold on to the physical money that has been won over the course of the game. And there are certain times throughout the game where that person will have important decisions to make that will affect the whole group, whether it's like dividing the group or there might be some sort of temptation or all this kind of nonsense. I kind of wanted to try that for our game.
Mhm.
The main reason being that when we did All Stars, we had the group divide themselves a lot, and that turned out to be a nightmare where they would just talk into circles forever and never come to a decision. So now that we forced the group to make it be one person, that one person can just make the decision when we need them to make the decision instead of trying to corral a whole group of people to finally agree on someone at the last minute. Because that's the thing, is they wouldn't talk about it until like, oh, the assignment, we want the assignment to start in the next hour here. Can you please just like decide what the hell the groups are going to be?
And then they talk about it for 3 hours.
Yes. Without ever coming to it. We now have one person that can do that. We also decided to do like what is it? So like that person, the treasurer, will divide the group as necessary, and then this is kind of a last minute thing that we thought of too for them, but uh, we're only doing the results of assignments to them. So because it's kind of like to mimic how in the show that person's in charge of the money, we'll tell them how much money is earned, and it is up to them to inform everybody else.
Mhm.
Just random nonsense that they can lie
Yeah.
about.
In certain assignments, like, like one of our assignments is around herd mentality, like they
Mhm,
see what's happening, like they see
mhm,
the results as they're coming up. So it's just up to them to calculate the money.
mhm.
It's as simple as that. But the treasurer is directly told by us the results. Other assignments, like they won't really get many results. The treasurer has to report on them.
Mhm.
But yeah, what can we share? You want to share a little bit of the reactions to that role, Spencer, that we had?
Well, at first there's just a lot of very like confusion when like I think Jamie had written the write up for it. I think you had said that, like they'll be in charge of the money and that they'll be in charge of dividing the group, which is a very straightforward concept. Emphasis on like dividing up the group is like their main role. But people are just like, wow, I'm so interested in what this is going to be. I'm so perplexed. What could the treasurer possibly doing? And it's like, well, we said it was just going to be in charge of dividing the group mainly, but thank you for making it more complicated than it needs to.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny, like with that first assignment. So the first assignment, the
Mm-hmm.
team was not given direct results by us. The treasurer got them.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if they reviewed the submissions for that assignment, we'll get into that specific assignment soon. If they review
Mm-hmm.
the submissions, it is possible to deduce what counted for money and what did not count for money, right, Spencer?
Yes, it is very straightforward.
Um,
If
so
you put in the smallest of effort, you could figure out which things earned money and which did not earn money and why they got the money that they did.
yeah, but we got some, I'd say, soft complaints
Mm-hmm.
about just the treasurer role, how that assignment played out, and then also the quiz as well. So our quiz, just jumping the gun here a bit, but like this season, starting off the game, the quizzes are multiple choice, and we plan our quizzes and our twists very much methodically, try to
Mm-hmm.
make it fair, consistent, and in a lot of ways, very consistent with the TV show. So, like
Mm-hmm.
in the actual TV show, the treasure is a role. That is something that happens. The treasure does have some of these powers as we've described them. That is a thing. And just the way the TV show functions, sometimes the group will be divided into like two teams. They'll go off and do their things, we as an audience will see what each person does throughout the assignment. But if you are a player, you are not seeing what all the other players are doing. So, and then at the end, you're often just told what the prize money was, just how much you earned, or that you earned nothing. Unless you talk to the other people about what they did, what they saw, what happened, you're not going to get that information for the quizzes. It is not just readily given to you by production.
Mm-hmm.
So, we had, I think in this quiz, one question that was just not something that we posted, but it's something that you could technically figure out if you consulted with the other teams.
Yeah.
And there was some pushback on that. But that's really how the game functions.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that, Spencer?
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree, because it's even just like as in simple of like there is two groups. Like if one group goes off to do task A and one group goes off to do task B, and like it's at like the final six, maybe so you have a group of three and a group of three. Like if I'm in one group of three, the only way that I can ever actually find out what the hell the other group of three did is by talking to them, and I'm still expected to be knowledgeable of that when it comes to the quiz, because like a question on the test could come up about what that other group of three did, and the only way I can know about it is if I had talked to them. And we have done that in our show, or not in our show, in our games before. There's other seasons where where we have split the group up like that. And it's like,
and in fairness, like we don't put a lot of those
nah.
questions on our quizzes. It's like generally one, sometimes two. I don't know that we've really done more than two as of now, have we?
Two at a time, probably not. It's usually just kind of like we like to throw in at one. Yeah, it's one, maybe two, of just like, you could know this if you were like really talking to everybody, but it's not something that like, it's not a super obvious thing that everyone should know.
Yeah, and even still, it's just as much of a guess for everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it's like skewed so like one person can know that more than anyone else.
Yeah, and I don't even think, like, at least off the top of my head, I don't think that like one question has ever really like come down to, or like
I
one.
do think so. It definitely did not matter tonight.
No, because most people actually got it right. They had guessed the right answer for that question that they couldn't possibly, like, that they weren't necessarily expected to know. I think it was like 8 or 9 of them guessed it correctly.
Yeah, really funny actually.
So
yeah,
it is what it is.
Yeah. So what's next then?
The other thing is our guest twist that we're doing for this season, which I will let you take lead on.
Sure. So, and I wouldn't even call this a twist.
No.
Really, it's just a thing that's happening. Like our most significant twist is the treasurer role. Basically, for the guest thing, we have a really strong history of our show. Not our show, Spencer. You make me say show of our game.
We think very highly of ourselves. We're TV show producers now.
People have loved our game, and that's great, because like for both of us, like we adore hosting this game, and we have had just like very strong cast, just a lot of people that we adore hosting, and we're coming off of our all-star season as well, so like we've had people come back that we really enjoyed. So just as a way to include some of our alumni, or some of our more memorable alumni, is each round we're inviting back one former player to just be in the main group chat. So they are just observing the others, trying to deduce in any way that they can who the mole might be. They are giving advice to the players as a whole, and really just, sharing about their experiences and getting to know the players this season. That's it. They're not players themselves. They don't have any extremely significant role. Like, the bit of a thing that we're going to do is after they leave the chat, we're going to give them a small interview that might come up later on this season as a game, but that's it. So our first guest was hero, legend, and icon Barb, who is our reigning victor of the series. She won our all-star game, and we adore her in this house. We love Barb. And yeah, that was a wild time. So Spencer, your thoughts on Barb and Barb's advice that she gave the group?
Barb was great to have at the group chat. She's just so pleasant and talkative. So, I mean, I think that's great, because like I think she really helped like the group in a lot of ways, like talk to each other more just about whatever the hell. Because Barb's in there.
Barb's mind at the time,
which truly could be anything. I think she got in her book plug in there. She is an author. I think she plugged her books, which I respect the hustle, honey. Love to see it.
Mm-hmm.
But most fun was that the advice she gave, she did tell people that like her advice as reigning champion and also former runner-up, she has played twice, coming second the first time and then won the second time. She said, stress the importance of splitting on the test, which is just like warms my heart because everyone should take that to heart. That is, if you're listening to this now and you ever play a mole thing, for the love of God, split early on. Like split
3 rounds longer than you want to.
Yes, just keep splitting.
Barb
And
has the record of, she has between 2 seasons taken 20 quizzes. She has never once ever guessed the mole correctly in either season, and yet she is a runner-up and a winner. Why, Spencer?
because she splits on the quiz and she takes it very fast.
Yes. Gosh, I love that woman.
It is such great sage advice. I was hoping that the group would take it to heart, but spoilers for the tests as we get there, they did not. Some of them did.
Some of them did. A lot of them did not.
Yeah.
So now the assignments?
Yeah, I think now we can finally get to like our 2 assignments. That was enough preamble.
Yeah. So the assignments are basically like his, mine, and ours sort of thing. Like we each come up with a set number of brand new assignments for each season, but like we're really involved in helping to edit those assignments. It's like we are both very active in that whole process. So we're each going to have a handful of new assignments this season, and then we have some that we selected together to bring back from past seasons as well. So the first assignment this season was one of mine, and it's a new one. So it's called Big Bucks No Whammies, which is basically, it took place over a few days. There were 6 tasks, and we would give the players a task and give them the number of people who had to complete it. So for example, I think the first task was something along the lines of post a YouTube video of you singing a specific song, and you need, say, 3 people to do that within 6 hours. It's as simple as that. The other option would be, post a video of you singing this other song, but instead you need 7 people to do it. So some of it was, the difference was you needed more people. Some of it was one task was a little harder than the other. But the task that they had to do out of those 2 options was decided by a dice roll. So I basically would roll a die. If it was 1, 2, or 3, they'd get the easier task. If it was 4, 5, or 6, they got the harder task. And so it was 6 total tasks that they would have to do over a few days. And each time that they completed one successfully, the money that they earned would double. So it started off at $500 and could go all the way up to $16,000. They did not earn $16,000. They did earn $2,000, which could be worse. It's not the worst start. So that means they completed 3 of the 6 tasks.
Which isn't bad.
It isn't. That's actually a pretty fair start. But there were some funny things that happened in it. What was the highlight for you, Spencer?
I mean, just because I know it's going to be a trend for the whole game. It always is. There's these people that they do not read. Like we spend a lot of time like being very particular in how we word our rules and all of that. And like we post a stock to try to be like as explicit as we can. Like we know we're not perfect. So like you can ask us questions about it for us to help clarify. But like we do that. People just don't read the document or like they just like skim it lightly, and so they get very confused. There's a lot of like confusion over the fact of like how many tasks there were. So like we had done the 5th task, and like the assignment, it doesn't explicitly say that there will be 6 tasks, but like it does spell out that like the 6 different monetary values of it all doubling, and like it heavily implies that the number would be 6 tasks. Like you don't need to be a rocket scientist to look at it and be like, it's going to be 6 tasks. So when they got to the 5th task, like half the group was like, oh yeah, we're done now. And because like another thing is that the document said like you could earn 16,000, and they thought that they had gotten like 8,000 of it with like the captain's like, I mean, the document says 16, clearly like you're missing something here. So to see like the group be so confused when like a 6th assignment popped up was particularly funny. And then just like, and then after that, because after the 6th one came up, we didn't like immediately end the assignment because we had like some tabulating our part to do. So like to see the group being like, oh, maybe there'll be a 7th assignment, maybe it can go up even higher. And again, it's just like, we're not playing tricks on you. It's written in the document. If you decided to go read it, find the answer out. We are not that shady. So that was funny to see. And
we are shady, but
we are, but not, yeah. And then just a lot of confusion over like the money in general being like, oh, we should have earned this much or that much or this much. Just about that, all of those assumptions I thought were very funny about just confusions when it's not like explicitly spelled out and hammered into their head all the time. Just how that can get lost on the group is funny to me.
And we had some fun sabotages, some unintentional and some rather intentional. So again, the team thought that they had succeeded in 5 of the 6. They knew they did not succeed in the last one, but the last one is meant to be very challenging. It's, you know, the hardest, it's the last task for a reason. But they thought they had all the other ones, but they did not. So for example, the first assignment was the simple one. It was post the video of you singing the song Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles, and you had to have a certain number do it within 6 hours. One person posted their video 1 minute after the deadline, the very explicit deadline. And that was an accident. It was an accident for Victoria. I mean, the group doesn't know that, but so they won no money for that.
Yes. Which I think would be great sabotage to do it 1 minute late, because like people picked up on that eventually, but they didn't notice that right away. And like to me, like I know, because my brain is now broken from hosting them all now. Like that was the second that I did, was like as soon as I saw her post, I like hovered over the time, be like, it's 1 minute late, good, they're not earning money, screw them. Or even just like playing other games, like I'm always like know to check the Facebook time, because like the time limits matter, especially in the mall. Like we are not going to be very forgiving with our rules, because the rules are there to punish you.
And honestly, to allow people to sabotage if they choose to, right?
Yeah. Because if we like become forgiving, then like that just, it makes it harder for the mall to sabotage. It makes it harder for other people to, I mean, it makes it harder for mistakes to happen too, which just happen a lot in the mall and work. It are an important part of the mall. Like people aren't meant to be competent at everything that we do. So yeah, then what was the other one we had? Well, Brian. Yeah, Brian tried to sabotage 2 of them.
Tried?
Well, he sabotaged 2 of them. Only one of them actually sabotaged, because the group went above and beyond for the 3rd task, I think, where they had to post.
There were 2 very good ones. So one of them was the team had to post each person had to post a picture of themselves. I think it was like 6 or 7 people wearing an outfit only of one color only. So he wore all red, except for he had black socks. And I don't think anyone noticed that.
I think I saw one. I think Adam in his diary might have mentioned that in one of his video diaries, but that one wasn't caught very much. But that assignment did end up succeeding anyway, because the group went above and beyond for it. They posted one extra video.
But the other one that did work was the jumping jacks.
Yes, Brian very deliberately did 59 jumping jacks. So thank you for making us count that, just to be sure. Really appreciate that.
I had to count that 3 times. So they had to do 60 jumping jacks within a minute, and he did 59 and then stopped.
So obviously, and the group did, that was 1. So but that, if you didn't count Brian's, and the group was 1 short of the total. So obviously that one also failed.
Yeah. Spencer, what did you think of our mole on the first task?
The audacity. I loved it. So Amanda, our mole, was the one person to not submit a single thing for any of the tasks.
At all.
Not even a failed thing. She did nothing for the task.
And it did not come from a place of just like not caring, not being there. I think she realized very quickly that having extra people submit will not be helpful for her cause. Because if other people screwed up, and they just have, so say you just submit the exact right number and someone else screws it up, the team's not going to get the money. So why add a person to that who could help them get money?
Mm-hmm.
She
Mm-hmm.
really used her time zone to her advantage. And she was great at feigning trying. Like
Yeah.
and the final task involved the game Endless Lake. They had to get 1,500 points within like 3 hours each person. And she's like, "Oh yeah, I can't get past 1,200." She didn't even do that. Like it was super funny. Interacting with her and her mole chat during that was like really great.
Yes, that was very fun. And it's just again to like, because like if I just think it's great too, because like logically it makes sense that like for this assignment, how much agency does the mole actually have over it is very little, because she can't control if other people, if she like were to, for example, like Brian did an assignment intentionally sabotage it, because of the group had more people do it anyway than necessary, it still succeeded. So Brian tried to sabotage something that didn't work. So you could have said that like, oh, Amanda should have like done some videos that like where she screwed up. She could have done that, but yeah, at the end of the day, some other people might have like done additional videos anyway just to make sure it succeeds.
And it
So
really worked out anyway because the team earned less money than they thought they were going to.
mhm.
So clearly someone was being shady during that. And since Amanda didn't submit anything, like no one could look at a submission that she submitted and be like, "Oh, you did that wrong."
Yeah, there's no extra scrutiny going to her. And she did, I know she did say that like after it was in the middle of the assignment after like I think by the time we posted the third one, she was like, oh, I could have done the first two assignments so easy. But just obviously chose not to. And it's just like the audacity of it. Cause like if I were a player, I would never suspect the mole to not do it, to have zero submissions. Cause like generally you think of the mole like looks like the hero or like looks like they're trying, but they don't actually produce anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just love that she was just like, nah, screw these people. They're getting nothing from me. Uh, so
And
I thought
it's
that was
funny
great.
because at that point, several people were immediately saying, either in their diaries or to one another, that, "Oh, it can't be Amanda. There's no way she's the mole."
Mm-hmm. Yes. Which we just love to see. Love to see
Yeah.
that.
But
Um,
the other assignment is yours.
yeah. So the other one, herd mentality, stolen from a board game, which will be a trend for my assignments. I'm so sorry. I'm not that creative, but it's
That
fine.
was a great assignment.
um,
Excuse me. So, um, who is the mole? Legend Joseph,
mm,
who is the winner of season 3, actively said that he would be commandeering that for his own game. So that's pretty cool.
mm-hmm. Yes. So that might pop up other places. So essentially, the way the herd mentality, the assignment works, is that we had the treasurer. The treasurer finally actually had like a task to do, which was divide the group into 6 pairs. Um, so we had 6 pairs, and they would collectively work together, and they would submit one answer to. It would be played over 10 rounds. We would ask one question each round, and these were just random questions. Like one was like, "What piece do you play as a Monopoly? What name something found on a beach? What's the best season to get married in?" So truly random questions. I know favorite one was like, "What is your favorite feature on the human face?" That one seemed to go over very well. So in those pairs, you would discuss and submit one answer, and the goal being that you want your answer to match as many other people's answers as possible. If the answer you gave was in the majority, so if like you gave your answer and 2 other people did, so 3 people gave it, then like, and then it was like the 3 other people just gave random answers that didn't really match anything, then those 3 pairs would each get a point. And at the end of the game, however many points that you earned would be just proportionally divided out of 6,000. So I think pretty much came down to like every point was $100. And then there was a bit of a twist to it though, that if a pair ever gave an answer that was the odd answer out, so in the case of a 5-1 or a 3-2-1 result from a question, the pair that gave the 1 would each earn an exemption. So we finally got to like put to the test this group of people that claimed so heavily that they were pro pot during our interviews. And it made me so happy to see how all of these people were like, oh, yeah, I just really want that pot to be huge. I really only care about the pot. Every single person was like, screw the pot. I want that exemption.
Very quickly too.
Which was nice to see. It's nice to be like, oh, good. It's like, especially because this season's a bit front loaded with exemptions. I think like in the first half, it's relatively common to have advantages. In the second half, there's just none.
Yeah.
So at least
This
early
is the
on, they're going to
first time
be.
that we've given out 2 exemptions in a round, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So Shandy and Jessica were able to win that. Um, it did call attention to interesting strategy that I did think was funny with the whole group, where a lot of pairs, I know like Tom in particular, but I think 4 of the pairs were like, oh, so we'll go for the pot early on, but like in those last couple of questions, we're really going to tank it and just try to get that exemption. And like to see them all kind of like come out to it as if like they had this like grand idea. It was such a common mindset, was really funny. And then it was nice to see, I know Brian and Adam, and then another pair, I don't remember who, had kind of like figured out the trick to this assignment that, well, actually, every team is going to think that they should tank it near the end. So you're going to get like a lot of 1 to 1 to 1 to 1 to 1 to 2 answers right near the end or something like that. The answer is much more likely to be scattered later on when people are trying to get the exemption. So really, you want to go for it early on. And so because a few pairs kind of figured that out early on, that that's how you should try to get the exemption, it just turned the whole assignment, like after question 1, into a disaster, because I don't think at any point in the assignment did they earn more than 3 points. So the biggest match they ever had was 3.
And one of the 3s was on the question, name a farm animal. And everyone was trying to, like the ones who scored were trying to throw their answer, and somehow 3 people said alpacas.
Yeah.
Not a
So
cow or a pig or a chicken.
kind of turned into a reverse of that, which was very
You love
fun
to
to
see it,
see.
honestly.
And there just were some fun answers all over the place. Like I think my favorite answer to the whole thing was for Grando and Alex for answering the question, what is your favorite feature on the human face? They just answered skin, which is a really bold answer.
I mean,
I
as
guess
was
that
pointed out, most faces that I like have skin.
yes, yes. I can't say I disagree. I do like my faces to have skin on them, but that was very funny to see. And the group seemed to really enjoy that assignment, just like the whole disaster of the whole thing. So it was very
Yeah,
nice to see that that assignment went very well. Both
there's
assignments,
some
I think, went very well.
there was some great Tom and Amanda content.
Yes. So Amanda, I think, had very good mole strategy where she pretty much just like asked right away, like, hey, Tom, do you want to go for the exemption or like what? And Tom's like, yeah, we should go for the exemption. She's like, oh, okay, great. And then she basically just spent the whole time deferring her answers to Tom so she can get none of the blame for if any of the answers were bad, which was very
But she was still
funny.
very active in the conversation
Yes,
too.
yes, she was very active, and she always made sure that she would never give an answer without Tom's approval first.
Hmm.
So she always talked out with Tom, and there were even points where she suggested an answer that wound up being the most popular answer given, but the pair ultimately decided on an answer that was less popular, even though she had mentioned one that would have earned them points beforehand.
So as a pair, they managed to score 1 point in the whole game.
Mhm.
So between 2 assignments, Amanda has helped contribute $100 out of a possible $22,000 to the pot.
Yes. So I think she's done a fairly good job moling, if I
Yeah,
do say so
definitely.
myself.
Oh my gosh.
And then even within their pair, I think it was funny because like Tom was very like not suspecting of Amanda and saying like, "Oh, we're making a great pair," um, and it's like, and he kept implying like, "Oh yeah, later on, like we're really gonna have to try to screw the pot," which is really funny to see because like at the point that they were saying that, it was like 4 or 5 questions into the game, they still hadn't earned a single point, and Tom's being like, "Wow, we're doing really great, and like we're not sabotaging yet, we're not deliberately sabotaging yet." It's like, "Oh, are you sure about that one, Tom?"
Yeah, it was pretty funny. So Spencer, your thoughts on Shandy and Jessica, who came out with the exemption?
I loved that. At first I was kind of shocked that it ended up being, it kind of made sense in hindsight that it would be one of the limited answer questions. I was very curious to be like, I thought especially like that one in particular would the group would be more likely to earn money on than to like for I guess if like the exemption goes out when they earn money, but like it'd be that one wouldn't be very likely to earn an exemption. I thought the exemption more likely to come out in one of the open-ended questions. But
Hmm.
I mean, to be host biased, I guess. I know I was happy that they got it because they're both mole newbies. And so like it's kind of nice that like it's like, oh good, these people haven't like experienced this game a lot before, or at least guaranteed to go farther in the game. It was very nice to
Yeah.
see.
I don't like to see anyone get executed first, but it's nice to see people make it a little further, at least, who haven't had the experience of playing.
Especially because, like, if you remember from our previous thing, we anticipated Jessica. Jessica was both of our first picks to be eliminated.
Yeah, we'll mention the quiz in a hot minute, though.
Yeah, we were very wrong on that, turns out. Whoops. But yeah, it was funny because, like, especially because, like, there were other groups that, like, as soon as they got the exemption, I know, like, Nick was very much like, oh, well, they've just locked in because they just have to give, you know, horrible answers the whole time for the rest of it. And then, like, they're just going to keep it. And Shandy and Jessica, to their credit, actually didn't do that. They didn't deliberately try to keep the exemption until the final question with name something on a beach, and they said dead whale, which was also really a great answer.
Because, you know, when you know, Nick and David were talking about how Shandy and Jessica just really need to tank it now. The next question was, for how many days would you eat leftover pizza? And like Nick and David by far and away gave the furthest out there answer.
Yes. Although in their defense, my answer would have been 7 days for that. So I just felt very attacked by that whole question. But whatever, it's fine.
But regardless, fun assignment. I think we're off to a great start in terms of our assignments. There's some good stuff there.
Good assignments, good moling, lots of failure on the group, so not a big pot. All things that make me happy to see.
Yeah. So what's next on your list?
I guess it really just is I guess it's just going over the test. I don't think that there's anything left.
No, I don't think so. Just if anything with any player stand out. But as far as the quiz goes, so we knew going into it, Shandy and Jessica have the exemption, so they were going to be safe. So that really just leaves 9 possible people who could get executed. And it was interesting because like we can see people's diaries, we see people's chats, so we kind of know what they're thinking. And a lot of people like from this point had already basically written off Amanda as far as the first round goes, except for
Jessica.
Yes, Jessica was the first person to cite, hey, I noticed Amanda hasn't brought in anything in either assignment. That's shady. Whereas other people are like, oh, it's Amanda. It can't be her.
So this might be like kind of something that we not necessarily like anticipated, but like wondered would be a possibility where like because Amanda has a lot of connections with people that are already in this game, when she acts, people aren't just necessarily going to see that as being inherently suspicious. While Jessica, who has some of the least connections in the game, potentially the least, because she's really only got like that connection to Grando. When she views Amanda, there's not that bias of already like knowing her. So like she's able to like not necessarily more objectively, but just like she's able to like see it as more shady behavior than say other people that are very close, than like Nick, who's very close with Amanda, and Dexter and these other people. So that was funny to see.
So Jessica, not only did she not need the exemption, she actually came out with the highest score on the first quiz, which you love to see. That was pretty great.
She got the highest. Oh, one thing I did want to say that was very funny about during Jessica's diaries discussing Amanda, she did at one point just refer to her as Susan, which is just so funny to me. So we have Shady Susan the Mole, is how I like to think of Amanda now. Whenever she's in mole mode, she's Susan. You can't trust that Susan over there.
Yeah, the Jessica has been lovely to host so far. I enjoy this cast, like I really do. But I think there's some standouts in terms of like people who I didn't really know, so I didn't know what to expect. Shandy is killing it. Like, oh my gosh, there is no bad Shandy content so far. Shandy's treasure has been so funny to see, and just her chats with everyone.
She's really gonna need to drop that N from her name because she is being shady. Like she is. There's one thing. Oh, I forgot with like the treasure. I guess to like ramble a bit. She did. When we had for the first assignment, we just told her like the group earned $2,000 and nothing else. that was all that we told her. Which is like very reminiscent of like the show. Like a lot of times in the show, they will just say this is how much money you earned and nothing else. And so that's what she had told the group first. But then initially, she went to like a few close people and made up a lie, being like, "Oh, they did tell me why we failed some assignments." It said one that we didn't complete. Obviously, one had a late submission, and then one had a technical or one didn't meet the requirements for it. Which she made that up, but those reasons were all correct. Those are the actual reasons about why they failed. But she's sitting there like deliberately spreading this information that she didn't get, so that way later on, when a treasurer shares information, she can sit there and say like that treasurer is lying because they're withholding something. There's information that they got from the hosts because I got information from the host. So she's
ready
like,
for that.
she is pre-planning to smear other people, and I love to see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Besides Jessica, how did the quiz go?
A shit show, which especially for like the first test is to be expected, but like I think a quarter of the cast, 4 people, I think, scored a 3 on it.
And that's not the lowest score.
It is not the lowest score.
Let me do the math. 7 out of 11 people who took the quiz scored a 3 out of 15 or lower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is just not good spreading. Is a big thing because there was even one, I know one that we noticed because David had mentioned it. He had mentioned that he was going to go in heavily on Brian, especially. I think Brian and Alex, but mostly Brian. And I don't know if we had deliberately checked, but like I'm pretty sure
he put every question on Brian.
Yeah, every single question hit Brian. And so, when we make the test, we don't think about the overlap at all because we don't want to be biased, because ultimately, because theoretically going forward now, like things could change, but like theoretically on the next test, David is going to suspect Brian. So if we were bad biased hosts, like we could go in this and make sure that there's no overlap at all between questions of Brian and Amanda, then that would tank it. Obviously, we don't want to do that. That is completely unfair. That is a horrid thing to ever do. Mm-hmm. So we don't even consider it. We make the questions and just try to make them like, we don't really fact check like who they're being overlapped with. We just make questions that have natural overlap with other people. So there are some times where like, so when I overlapping with Brian, apparently there was 3 questions that had overlapped with Amanda on that just naturally. While even though we didn't go and check, it might be hypothetically say like, I don't know, maybe if you went all in on Shandy, there might have been like 5 questions that overlapped, or maybe there's only like 2. That's not something that we had like ever really planned for. Because again, going all in on somebody on the first test is incredibly bad strategy. Happened to pay off in this one, so that's very interesting to see where David's going to go forward. Mm-hmm. But should not do that. 0 out of 10, do not recommend. Not a trustworthy strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it tends to lead you to double down and like, oh, I survived, so I must be right. So people, not saying this will happen with him, but we have seen that people fall into a confirmation bias trap very easily. So it's like, if I survived, I must be right. So the only thing I can keep doing is doing exactly what I've done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll see for that.
Yeah, but Spencer, can we talk about the elimination then? The eliminated player?
Yeah, so unfortunately, sad to see anyone go. So I'm going to say this every time. So get used to it. Sad to see Grando will be leaving us, especially because he had voiced his concern to Jessica, at least that he's like petrified of going first. Yeah. That he just he has said that like if he had ever played the mole, he would end up being eliminated first.
Yeah, and it was sad. This is his first mole game, and he's brought some good content. It has been really fun to host him, like genuinely it has. Mm-hmm. And he took the right quiz strategy for the most part, and it just did not work out because we tracked his answers after he submitted his quiz. And Spencer, you saw that he split a lot between the cast. He wasn't just all on one person, right?
No, he did not go all in. I went through for all of his questions and see where it overlapped and scored it. So like if every single contestant was the mole, what would his score be for every person? And he spread on every person with a minimum of 2, with the exception of Amanda Susan. So
with 0
overlap. And I don't know if it was deliberate or if it was just pure happenstance of his spreading that he just happened to not go on that. Because it's like, I don't know. At a certain point, it seems like it has to like to truly get like a 0 on if you are trying to split and then to get 0 on somebody, especially because he also did take the longest. He was like, it was 9 minutes 30 seconds, so he's almost at our cap for
Maximum,
the
yeah,
test.
which is 10 minutes.
So granted, I don't know, obviously. My assumption is that like he had to be very deliberate in his spreading a lot of the time, like very thorough with the notes would be my guess. So I don't, because he did mention in the diary about like how he didn't think Amanda was the mole because she didn't do anything, which
is inaccurate.
disagree, but that's his perception of it.
Yes, which is fair.
So he just ended up with a 0, and it's like, yeah,
It's
no one else.
like, I will really miss him. Would be
Mhm.
fun to have him again in the future.
Yes, if we ever do returnee, even just like second chancey type of thing, love to have him back.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's basically everything. These are always going to be longer than we expect, Spencer.
Yes, when we were discussing this like preseason, being like, oh, we'll probably just like sit here talk for 15 20 minutes about the episode or like the round, and we won't have much to say. We underestimate our own ability to drone on about nothing interesting whatsoever.
Yeah, hopefully someone finds these interesting.
I'll at least find it interesting. I'll be our one view. I will go back and re-listen to these.
No, I know we have at least a couple of alumni who will watch this. I know there's a couple of players who will watch it, so I think we can get all the way up to 6 views.
That's the goal. If we can surpass 6,
or make your grandmother watch it.
Maybe.
Say that you're funny. On TV.
I'd be like, Grandma, I'm a content creator now. You have to go consume my content.
Fun first round. We'll see where it goes. I'm excited for our new guest for next round, so stay tuned for that. Yeah, that's all I got.
Another interesting kind of twist. It's not the most dynamic twist, but I'm genuinely interested to just see what happens with it. So yeah, we don't really have big twists this season. Like we have the couple of things with like the treasure and then something we're doing next round, but none of them are like mind-blowing huge twists that are going to markedly impact the season like we've done. We've had a couple bigger ones in the past that still keep the purity of the mole, I'd say. Like that's our goal. Like we want stuff that's interesting and entertaining, but it doesn't like break from like the purity of like what we're trying to do here. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we should sign off then. What do you think? Yeah,
I think we've talked to death. I mean, knowing us, we could talk more about it, but I think we've said enough.
Yes. All right. Goodbye, loyal 6 fans.
And goodbye to our loyal 7th fan that we maybe will get one day.